This shows what we do with contact tracing in BC. And the contact tracing in question here now involves 3 health authorities in British Columbia: Interior Health, obviously, in Kelowna, Fraser Health, and Vancouver Coastal Health. And yeah, this is the process. This is the work, almost the detective work of public health and our outstanding health team in Interior Health and in the other health authorities who pursue cases, identify cases, and identify contacts. And that's what's happened in this case. So indeed, the cases involve people in Vancouver Coastal Health and Fraser Health through the contact tracing process. Obviously, was linked to Kelowna and to the community there. And I think it's important to recognize we've raised issues around 4 sites in Kelowna and 2 resort hotels there. But the main inciting incident, it would appear, is were private parties held in those resort hotels. And so I think the message to everybody is pretty clear. I want to give a lot of credit to people in Kelowna, particularly the businesses in Kelowna, who have been in tourism doing a very good job in a general sense, both in restaurants and tourism, in addressing the needs of keeping tourists and everybody safe in Kelowna. But when people come together for private parties, in this case, it's largely people in their 20s and 30s, the risks are considerably higher. They tend to be in enclosed spaces. They tend to involve people coming from different places, different walks of life, who may not know each other at all. And the risks of those kinds of events are higher. It's why we have limits on the overall sizes of gatherings, organized gatherings. But people, I think, have to show good judgment with respect to events. When I walk around my constituency in Vancouver Kingsway, frequently I'm finding people in the front lawn, physically distanced, having kind of a new form of party where we're often around in a circle and people are keeping apart. But a private party, it might or it might not involve alcohol. It makes it very difficult to maintain physical distance, to know who you're about. You're essentially and potentially, if you're going to such a party, significantly increasing your bubble. So I want people to remember how cautious they need to be. And that, just in my case, I live in an apartment between 800 and 900 square feet. Well, a reasonable size for any event where I might invite people, the maximum number of people that I would probably invite in such a space in my living room would be 4 people. And so this is the risk of that, and we have to acknowledge that. We also have to acknowledge that people have fully involved themselves in the contact tracing process, and that this is a worldwide pandemic, and we see in other jurisdictions around British Columbia how many cases we see. What I'm suggesting to people is we can travel, but we have to be as respectful of where we travel as we are our home community. We can do things out in the world, but we have to be conscious of physical distancing. And if we're going to engage and have events that bring people together in enclosed circumstances, in private parties, we have to be conscious both of the risks, not just the risk to ourselves, but to our parents, to our grandparents, to people we might know who have chronic diseases such as diabetes, and act accordingly. And I think that's the lesson in this case. As you know, we announced, I believe, connected to this on Friday, 8 cases. We'll be announcing the case numbers at 3 o'clock this afternoon by a written statement from myself and Dr. Henry, and we'll see what the numbers are then.
Do you have a follow-up, Keith?
Yes, is it not incumbent on these resorts to prevent these private parties from occurring? I'm not sure exactly what the physical dimensions were, whether they were all in a room or something, but isn't it the responsibility of these facilities to ensure this doesn't happen?
My message, first of all, is to people, because if you own a space, whether you rent a space, you own a space, and you're having a party, you have obligations too. You have responsibilities too. And if you're going to go and accept an invitation to such an event, you have to keep the risks of that in mind. And that's an important consideration because, well, these particular private parties occurred in resort hotels that were being effectively rented for a short duration stay. There are parties that will take place in people's homes and apartments all the time. And we have got to live with COVID-19 for the next year. So that means the responsibility is on all of us, I think, to understand the risks and to understand our responsibility to one another and act accordingly. And I think people in BC overwhelmingly, especially when I walk around Vancouver Kingsway, Keith, people are responding very positively to this. But we have to understand that even though we've done much, much better than other jurisdictions, and our cases, I think on Friday we had our highest number of new cases for some time, and it was 25. But that's not, as we know in jurisdictions near us, in the hundreds, or indeed in the thousands in some cases, some jurisdictions in North America. But it's still with us. It's still in the Interior Health Authority. It's still in our health authorities across the province, and we need to act accordingly. It strengthens the advice that we consistently give about, especially about people coming together and gathering, and about what happens when you travel in the province, that you have to behave and follow the advice, the counsel, and in some cases the rules being provided by Dr. Henry and public health officials across the province. And we're going to be dealing with this for months and months and months to come. And so it is critically important, especially when people gather, especially when they gather in private residences or private parties, that those rules be followed in those circumstances. And I think it's important to understand that just in general, the most likely people we're going to transmit this virus to if we become positive to COVID-19 are people that we love. And that should be reason to inspire us to follow the rules, right? So it is possible to be safe. And in restaurants, we have work safe and we have public health rules that are being put in place and plans laid out and so on. It is possible to do that. And it is possible to travel. But that doesn't take away from the fact that we're living in a time of the COVID-19 pandemic. And whether we travel or whether we're at home, whether we're going to a party when we're on a trip or whether we're going to a party at home, the same concerns, the same risks apply. And we have to follow that. And again, this isn't to make people's lives less fun. This is about keeping the ones we love safe, and that's a pretty good reason to do it.
Do you have a follow-up, Claudia?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. Are there any additional precautions that people who are traveling should be taking, or businesses that are hosting travelers?
Well, with respect to the businesses, and you see this all over the place, and it's important to businesses. Certainly people, for example, in the restaurant industry, talk to me about the importance of the rules and the importance for them and following the rules and demonstrating to people who would come that it's safe to come, and their concern for their customers is high. And that has certainly been the experience around BC. So there, it's following the rules. But when you're traveling, I think it's understanding where you're going and being respectful of where you go. It's possible in this province, this incredible province, to travel around and do so safely and show the same respect we would show to our family members that we show to people who are visiting in one of the many communities people may want to visit. So I think it's about understanding that while we're on vacation, we're not on vacation from our responsibilities with respect to COVID-19.